Hello, Bible readers. It is Tuesday, April 13th. We're reading from 2 Kings chapters 20 and 21 and James, launching into James chapter 1 through chapter 2, verse 13. James, I wanted to read this paragraph to you. Martin Luther's distaste for James is well known, but was not widely shared by other reformers. Luther considered that James chapter 2, verse 24, which is just outside of our reading for today, but it says, "You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone." Luther considered that contradicted Paul's teaching on righteousness in Galatians chapter 2, verse 16, which says, "A person is justified not by the works of the law, but through faith in Jesus Christ." I'll say more about this tomorrow, but Luther's view dominated much of the scholarly approach to the letter until very recently. Most readers through the ages, however, reached a position like that of the patristic interpreters, that is, the ancient church fathers, as they're called, and the opposite of Luther's, and that is, number one, James and Paul do not contradict each other because they're not addressing the same point, and number two, when read on its own terms, James is a powerful witness to both the diversity in early Christianity and the moral imperative of Christian identity in every age. So this is, for Lutherans, one of those letters that some Lutherans, because they're Luther-devoted people, they're like, oh, I'm supposed to hate James because Luther didn't like James. And then other Lutherans celebrate how it's a different voice. And aren't we as Lutherans, as constantly seeking to reform ourselves and the church, aren't we welcoming of different voices? So, it's good to read it ourselves and see where we land. James has 59 imperatives in 108 verses. Do this, think this way, blah, blah, blah. So James is a general epistle, that's its category. Kind of like an op-ed is just kind of put out there for everybody to read. So it's not meant to be read on a specific occasion or was written like Paul's letters were written for one congregation at a specific time. This is written at no specific time, no specific occasion, with no particular congregation in mind. It's more like wisdom literature. But it's not for an individual, it's for a community. It's also not supporting distinctions of status like wisdom literature in the Old Testament, where it's like parents and children, or heads of household versus the rest of the household. It's all about everybody in the same boat. God is the head of the household. Also, it's wisdom about morals, not manners, which is also a little different from Old Testament wisdom. We're not sure about who wrote the letter or when the letter is produced necessarily. We do know, though, it's written well. And what I mean by that is it's written in very thoughtful Greek. So like when people who translate these things, when they look at some letters or some gospels, for example, they're just rougher, whereas this is written in very elegant Greek. Chapter 2, today's text, love results in active faith. That's the claim. It just does. And it reminds me of our tagline at First Lutheran, faith alive. If you have love, you're going to love actively. So, more to come. 2 Kings chapter 20 and 21, we've got Isaiah and Hezekiah appearing again. We hear Isaiah's grave prophecy that a Babylonian exile is coming. This again makes subsequent generations see that God did not lose. Like when they go into exile, it's not like God was powerless or faithless. God was in on the exile as judgment against a faithless Israel. And so it's important to those who come after the exile to explain what happened there. Did God leave us as a faithless God? Did God lose to some other gods? And so this is making clear, oh, no. This was about the faithlessness of Israel, not the faithlessness of God. Faithless Israel is seen through the reign of Manasseh and then Ammon, who do irreparable damage. This should all sound familiar, as we've read these stories before from Chronicles, but repetition doesn't hurt, at least for me. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.